You're creating a tent that has a story. Imagine all of those trips it's been on. Imagine all of the journeys, all the adventures. Oh, I remember, see that tear there, which you were meant to. Remember when we did that? Because
that was
like
when
so
that
and
lion
so.
almost got us.
Yeah, that lion nearly came through our tent. So instead of like chucking that away, saying that's rubbish, I'm going to get a new one, you say, this item is creating something more than just owning a possession. And then when you start sharing it with people, you're also allowing and enabling other people to have a piece of that.
Hello, and welcome to the EcoSend Podcast, a weekly podcast on becoming a climate-conscious business. Every week, we'll be interviewing founders, marketers, and leaders who are championing the climate. The podcast is hosted by myself, James Gill, co-founder and CEO of Go Squared, and the makers of EcoSend. If you run a business or are responsible for growing one, and you want to have a positive impact on the environment, then listen on. Every episode, our goal is for you to learn something and be inspired to take some action. Every single one of us making small changes and some large changes will add up. We're all in this together. So let's get on with the show. Thanks so much for listening. Now let's meet today's guest.
Hi there, I'm James, and welcome to another episode of the EcoSend Podcast. The EcoSend Podcast is a weekly show where I am talking to people who are leading businesses and leading change in the world and really focusing on trying to make the planet a little bit better. This week, I am thrilled to be joined by Rebecca Heaps of Tentshare. Now, Rebecca is a passionate advocate for regenerative economies. As the driving force behind Tentshare, a pioneering sharing economy platform, Rebecca encourages affordable camping by facilitating the sharing of camping equipment within local communities across the UK. Now, Rebecca, I'm thrilled to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank
good
you.
to see you today. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. And really pleased to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Awesome. No, it's great to have you on the show. So, yeah, Rebecca, in your own words, like, what are you up to? Tentshare sounds awesome. I haven't been to many festivals recently. I haven't been to many festivals, full stop, but I feel like I should be. I feel like I'm not cool enough lately. Tell me how that's the main reason why I keep thinking I'd have a tent, but actually, really, there's a lot of reasons why you might have a tent, I guess. So, but yeah, tell me more about what you're up to, Rebecca. I'm keen to hear.
Yeah, so we do have a festival arm to the Tentshare model, but how it really started was by I wanted to rent out my own bell tent to make a bit of extra money, and started to do that, and it was doing fairly well. And then I thought, I'll put it on a platform just like Airbnb, but for tents, and one did not exist. There isn't one.
I see.
And so I was moaning about that to someone, and they said to me, why don't you stop moaning about it and get on and do it? So, and that's how Tentshare came into creation. So it's been created so that anyone who owns a tent can put their tent onto the platform and rent it out to earn a bit of extra money. But also, more crucially, is that they are allowing someone else to gain access to camping equipment and kit to be able to access nature more affordably. There's sort of, you do get the added bonus of getting a bit of extra income from something you already own, but it's getting other people to be able to access camping and therefore nature, really. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So yeah, there's a bunch of different aspects there to why Tentshare is a great thing to exist in the world. And now you mention it, I've not really done a lot of camping before, mainly because I'm like, I need all the stuff and I need all this extra equipment. So, well, now I am far more aware of Tentshare. That's
so
going to remove that excuse I have.
Exactly. So if you want to go camping, pop on the Tentshare platform and choose the tent that's fit for your, trip. Instead of buying one that may be good for that trip, but maybe not good for the next trip, you get access to all the different types of tents, James. So yeah, there's no excuse now. I can't wait to see you out camping.
No pressure now. The next podcast will have to be in a tent on a campsite somewhere.
From a tent.
Go a bit more remote. Yeah. Thank you for the explanation. I think that sounds awesome. I'm sure many people listening or watching will be quite keen to check it out, actually. Airbnb for tents. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to call it, when I was thinking of the name for it, before I landed on Tentshare, I was going to call it Fresh Airbnb.
Oh yeah, that is actually
That
brilliant.
was really good. I was like, I can't face the litigation of that.
Yeah, more lawsuits, I think, down that path. But I like that too.
Yeah, it is a good name, isn't it? I
Yeah.
wish I was a bit braver on that, but yeah.
Amazing. Can always get a domain, I guess. Redirect it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
One for the future.
I love it. Yeah. So you mentioned how you sort of stumbled into running, or not meant in a mean way at all. How you ended up running Tentshare, but did you already have a passion for the environment, the climate as well, or did one follow the other? What was your journey to that point? Because I guess maybe many people come across that challenge. Not many people take that extra leap to actually go and set up a whole business around it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have thought about that, and I've always been interested in the environment. I've always been very conscious of treading softly on the earth, as it were.
Yeah.
But never really known how to address that. So I have another business, family-owned business, but one of my things that I try and do with that is add in eco-friendly options, but that's like a retrofit for a family business that's already up and running. When I created my own business, I was like, right, this is brilliant because I can do it my way. And I always have worked on the principles. In fact, they're Quaker principles, which are peace, truth, equality, integrity, and simplicity. And so that's embedded in Tentshare's values. And it's because it's part of how I live my life. It's also how Tentshare has grown. Those values are totally embedded, which means that, of course, it's going to be a social enterprise. Of course, it's going to be looking after the earth, because that's what I believe in. And taken from the Quaker principles, which I think anyone can live their lives by that. I'm not a Quaker, but anyone can live their lives by those principles, the 5 principles, and you won't go far wrong, I reckon.
That's amazing. Yeah, I have to admit, I wasn't actually too familiar with the fact that with those 5 principles as being part of that. So what were they again, just to clarify?
So I try and remember it by I think it's pests: peace, equality, simplicity, truth, and integrity. It doesn't quite work. Pesty.
Yeah.
So
I see.
If you think about those, you won't go far wrong if you apply that to everything. Does it bring peace? Does it bring equality? Does it bring simplicity, which is sustainability? Does it have a truth to it? And then has it got integrity?
Probably need a lot more of all 5 in the world right now. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. So that's basically, you already would sort of approach life like that.
Yeah.
Before Tentshare, and now it must feel amazing to be running something that is truly totally aligned with those as well. And
it's so amazing, and I'm in control of it as well, so if something comes across, I do get approached by some people to maybe invest in Tentshare or do something with Tentshare, and if I apply those principles and they're not aligned with that, then it's a very easy no from me or yes.
You can sleep a lot easier at night with that as sort of your kind of checklist way of dealing with things in life. I love it. That's already tremendously inspiring. So I know one of the things you wanted to talk about, and I guess is very related to Tentshare, was about the sort of, you call it use intensity, or I guess the intensity with which we use products. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I think we can all agree right now, right here, James, that we have enough stuff. Yeah. There's enough stuff in the world, right?
Yeah.
If we stopped, you've heard that data. If we stopped making clothing tomorrow, we would be able to clothe with what we've already got the next 6 generations globally.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Oh my
you can
goodness.
apply that to all the stuff we've got. You know, we know that our landfills are filling up. We know that our seas are filling up with trash, and it's all stuff. It's just stuff.
Yeah.
And we've been sleepwalked. Is that a word?
Sleepwalked. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Into this incredible consumerist society, which is great for getting the economy going, which is what needed to happen post-war. So that was one of the things that kept, that instigated this massive consumption, was that we needed to get the economy going. So we were being great citizens. So we're buying lots of things. Yeah, that's great. Get the economy going, make Britain great again, all of that. But what's happened is that we've become too good at it. And we've forgotten that actually buying something new is not always the most joyful way and most pleasurable way of getting what you want. And so with use intensity, there's a thing. So I always talk in terms of tents, because that's what I've learned.
Yeah, well, you might be the expert on that then, Rebecca. Yeah, for sure.
So I've worked.
Don't let me stop you.
I work with a carbon calculator guy called, who founded No Carbon, KNOW Carbon, and he worked with me on use intensity and carbon cost. So what you have to imagine is it's cost a certain amount of carbon for this item, for the tent to be manufactured and to arrive at the place that it's at. So for instance, a single use festival tent is about 32 kgs of carbon to get to that point. Now, we've worked out with use intensity, if you use it once and throw it away, it's cost 32 kgs of carbon.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
If you use it and use it and use it, that carbon cost is decreasing through use intensity. So we've worked out, I say we, Eamon worked out that if you use it for 10 weekends, you've basically paid off the carbon cost. And then the clever thing is then, if you start using it beyond that, you're becoming regenerative. You're starting to give back to the planet. And that's the power of use intensity. So instead of throwing something away and buying something new, what the key to this crisis that we're in my opinion, and in others, is to use what we already own. And use it and use it and use it. And then when we can't use it anymore, repurpose it, to repair it, to repurpose it, to clean it, to share it, to swap it, and to rent it, obviously, rent a tent.
Obviously.
And that's the beauty of Tentshare, is that people have tents. Usually people have, if they're campers, they have a few tents in their homes.
Right, yeah.
Which get used maybe once or twice a year, and then not used again. So they're not getting use intensity. And what Tentshare does, by facilitating the match of a person who would like to use a tent and someone who owns a tent, is to increase that use intensity.
Yeah.
So
that is extremely interesting. I guess maybe coming at it from a novice background, I'm intrigued at that point where there's that sort of inflection point, Rebecca. Like, so I definitely get it where you're sort of reusing the thing.
Yeah.
When you get to that sort of, was it 10 uses?
Yeah.
What makes it regenerative at that point, out of interest?
Well, because you're not, at that point, you've used up the carbon. It's not an exact science, and I'm no carbon expert. It's basically, it's got 1 kg of carbon still, contained in it. I don't know the proper terms. You should get Eamon on.
Maybe we will. Yeah.
And so once you've used up the carbon cost of manufacture, of shipping, of getting it to that point, and you've used it for sort of 10 weekends, then no new tent is being made. So that's a carbon saving.
Yes. Okay.
And it's almost like backwards. If you sort of start thinking, you're kind of, by keep using it, you're kind of giving back to the planet plus, because you're not taking from the planet. You're giving back
yeah.
more than you're taking. That's it. It's the
Yeah,
balance.
yeah.
It's difficult for me to get it, but it's about a balance. It's like you're
I yeah,
taking, and once you start working on that use intensity, you're giving back. Once you've got that balance
yeah,
where it's like
yeah,
zero carbon, you're starting then to give it
yeah.
back. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I'd
It
have to
definitely
double check
does.
with
Yeah, no, it
Eamon.
definitely does. And I think that it's easy to get caught up into the specific calculations. And I think a lot of people struggle with this sometimes with any kind
Yeah,
of carbon calculation. It's like we want it to be this precise science, but it can vary by there's like just such an almost infinite number of variables that can actually impact that
so many.
measurement. But the high level story there is like get a tent or if whatever product you buy, the more you use it, the more you're going to
Exactly.
make the best use of what all of the resources and effort that's gone into making that
Yeah,
thing. And the longer and more intense you use it, then
yeah,
you're doing more justice to that effort that's gone in. And I
absolutely.
totally agree with you on
It's
that.
a
It makes
new,
me think of like, that in my dad and his shed, and some of the tools he has are older than me, and
yeah,
they
yeah.
seems like they used to make them a lot better back then, and now it's like, oh yeah, you just go on Amazon and click one button and buy a new thing. It doesn't matter, but
Yeah,
I think it does.
it does, and
Yeah,
especially as it's on, it's on mass. We're buying a huge amount of stuff over and over and over again,
yeah, yeah,
and there's no need for it. And what people have
yeah.
forgotten, and this is leads me on. Well, I have a huge vision, which has mostly been inspired from the collaborative and collectives that I've been in. So it's not my vision; it's a collective
Yeah.
vision. But if we stop buying new things, you say, right, well, what are we going to do about paying the manufacturers? What are we going to do about all of that? And it's like, well, why don't we start upskilling them to start repairing, to start being, skilled repairers, skilled cleaners, skilled repurposers, so that when you walk down the high street, you take your blanket that you've purchased that maybe have cost you a bit more than going down to Primark and getting a blanket that's a bit more, so it's a higher quality, and you take it down the high street and you go and chat to people, and someone will mend it for you, someone will clean it for you if it's been damaged, someone else will be able to show you how to repurpose that into a jacket, if it's no longer being used. And what you're doing then is you're creating like a much deeper connection with that item. So with tents, we mend them, we mend poles. Tents are so fixable. So poles can be mended easily. I'm a fully qualified tent mechanic, and I'll get to that in a minute. But
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
I'm
can,
keen to learn more.
yeah, I can mend poles. I can mend tears on a tent. You can re-waterproof and you can solar proof it, right? So basically, all element, and we can mend zips, right? So all elements of a tent are ultimately fixable. But also, what happens there is you're creating a tent that has a story. Imagine all of those
Yeah,
trips it's been on. Imagine all of the journeys, all the adventures. Oh, I remember, see that tear there, which we've mended. Remember when we did that? Because
that was
like
when
so
that
and so,
lion almost got us.
yeah,
And
that line nearly came through our tent. So instead of like chucking that away, saying that's rubbish, I'm going to get a new one, you say, this item is creating something more than just owning a possession, and then when you start
yeah,
sharing it
yeah,
with people, you're also allowing and enabling other people to have a piece of that. So it's
yeah,
actually, we've forgotten how joyful it is to look after our stuff and to create
absolutely.
that kind of deep connection with the things that we own and love.
I think it's really inspiring to hear you say that, and I think it's also one of those things where um in a lot of I mean maybe I'm sure in the tent industry there is innovation, but I guess in many ways, for the most part, a tent today that is made that you buy brand new in a shop is functionally very similar to a tent that was made maybe 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And the same can't always be said for every product in our lives. And but and I think about that with things like shoes and luggage and so many things around the home, which even a sofa, it's like these things have not technically changed that much in a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And it's really what's persuading us to buy that new thing. It's maybe not the actual product itself, but the surrounding messaging and marketing and
Exactly.
status as well. So many other factors.
Aesthetics. Oh, I want to repaint my living room so my sofa doesn't match anymore. What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's such a wasteful, and we forget what a privilege that is. But also don't forget, if I want a new sofa, I should have a new sofa. Yeah, of course. If you want a new sofa, have a sofa. But think about where you're getting your sofa from, where it's coming from, and also think about what you're going to do with your old sofa. So, maybe you can give it to someone who might like it. Maybe you can, I've got a sofa that the bed in it didn't work anymore, and it was a bed sofa bed, and I put it outside. I cover it over when it rains, but so I sit outside on my sofa when I feel like it. So that's like having a use intensity. It's used all the time, and it's still continuing to be used. I got that sofa secondhand, and it's been in my world, and now it's outside. So I'm using it as much as I can before I take it to landfill, and I know that there's a bag company that actually uses the leather from old sofas to recreate bags. I can't remember what they're called now. Yeah, I just saw them on Instagram. But there's loads of these little enterprises that are popping up everywhere that are looking at this incredible resource we have, which we call waste, which is actually a resource, and it should be used. So there's that's where I'm at. And also nature it's really important that we start thinking about how we interact with nature and how we connect to nature. Once you start connecting to nature and step away from buying stuff, there's a kind of a shift in people's minds about what they need and what makes them happy and what gives them a sense of well-being, and that's why Tentshare is there as well, to be able to create an affordable access to camping and therefore nature. So lots to talk about there. So
absolutely. No, I guess I was maybe gonna play maybe a devil's advocate slightly on something you were talking about, because I want to see a world where we all, myself included, I try my best, but I know that sometimes you can fall foul of even your own best intentions. But how does one convince someone, especially in a challenging time around the world? I think this cost of living crisis and things getting more expensive all the time, when I don't want to specifically call out Primark, but they're a name that comes to mind. Like, one could go to a Primark and buy a blanket. They probably sell tents too, I don't know, but something that's just almost unfathomably cheap versus actually spending that money. And in the best will in the world, people get caught by that low price tag and that impulse. How do we tackle that? How does the world tackle that? Because it feels like a very difficult bandwagon to get off of.
It does, and that's exactly what I was going to say about nature. It's like marketing has a big part to play in this mindset shift.
Yeah.
And so nature has absolutely no budget for their marketing.
Yeah. That's a good point.
That's what we're up against, If we're advocating for nature and for our planet, where's their marketing budget? Who's bringing them to the boardroom? Where's Faith in Nature is such an inspirational business. They have actually employed a lawyer to represent nature in their boardroom.
Yeah, I had heard about that. Yeah,
I
saw
that is
incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, I saw one of the I don't know who it was, but she was speaking about this, and she said once nature came to the boardroom, the whole conversation was transformed.
Yeah.
Just everything that we said had to be run through nature and what nature might think about that. And she said it was incredible, even to the fact that everyone became more collaborative, more open to wider ideas. And so for me, that's inspirational, and they're making a success of it. So there's a business model that's successful, and that's why it's so important for me for Tentshare to be successful, to be used by everybody, to prove that we can have business models that maybe are not, my intention for Tentshare is not to grow so that I can be a millionaire. My intention for Tentshare is to be able to scale so that we can offer as many people as possible this model. And so you say about the cost of living crisis, well, Tentshare steps in there. You buy a tent or you own a tent, you can start making some money from it. And plus also the money's not going up to the fat cats. The money's staying within our local community. I'm giving, if I go and rent a tent from you, James, I'm giving you my money. We're having a transaction. We're also having a human transaction. And so we kind of, in this model, the sharing economy model, this circular model, we're kind of sidestepping the bigger economy, this growth GDP economy, which everyone says it's got to go up. We have to grow. But what goes up must come down. And no one's thought about that. How are we going to create a landing for that? Down.
And it's becoming more conscious of, I guess like everyone cares about the things that are maybe easiest to measure, and you can measure GDP with various numbers, but and I'm no economist myself, but
me either.
It's always making me conscious of, even with, as we were talking about carbon footprint, like we talk about the measurement of carbon footprint because it is one of the vaguely like natural things that we can assign a number to, but there's so many other attributes here that are like very immeasurable, but that it would probably be a good idea if we do more of some of this good stuff that's maybe we don't have a way to quantify it today.
Exactly. And have you heard of the triple bottom line?
That rings a bell. You may have to remind me.
So,
I'm asking that purely for our listeners because I obviously know what.
Obviously you do, yeah. I think it was John Elkington who created it. So what he talks about is, of course, the only way that we can measure success of a business is through profit. That's the only way we can measure if it's a success, right? So that means that a good business leader spends all their time getting profit. Right. And that means that any moral questions, anything like that, any other kind of, if you get sidetracked by whether it's a good idea to pay people less because of their well-being, then you're not really being a good business leader because you're not making the best success of it. Right. That's how we work currently. And what John Elkington, I'm pretty sure it's him. I'll stop saying his name because it might not be him. What he posits is that at the bottom of a profit and loss sheet should be planet accounted for, people accounted for, and then profit underneath that. And so Tentshare can do that. We can account for the planet through, like you say, the very clunky measurement of carbon savings, use intensity and carbon efficiency savings. We can account for the bottom line for people because we're allowing people to make money from an asset they already own, and then we look at the profit. And that creates sorry, no. And that creates what that creates is when a business leader has got their eye on planet, people, and profit, then the measurement of success, which we currently work by, is going to be watered down. So maybe Tentshare's profit is going to take longer to emerge. But I can quantify what I'm doing for the planet and what I'm doing for the people already. For me, that's a success because I work on the triple bottom line. I don't work on the bottom line.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that definition of, I mean, I think it's come up on this podcast a few times where so many of us, we have this perception of success, which is almost come from Hollywood and things where success equals popping champagne on a mega yacht or things like this. And I think some of the most interesting findings I've had for myself have been my own definition of success changing over the years, and realizing actually so much of that is a superficial, so much that for me was very superficial, and actually there's so much more that's like integral to you. And what you were saying at the start around having such clear values as an individual and running a business that you know and understand and is proudly totally aligned with your values, that sounds a lot like success, if I may dare say. And I think that's just such a fascinating sort of other whole topic there of like people's definition of success and how that relates to business, for sure. Is...
And what wealth means to you. You know, we talk in terms of, or in some of my communities and collaborations, we talk in terms of health. So it's wealth with an H. So, you know, wealth means health and satisfaction and joy and abundance. It doesn't necessarily have to be financial. I did want to also briefly talk about CampLight. I work very closely.
Oh yeah, please do.
Is that right?
I know that. I mean, this half hour has flown by, Rebecca. I was like, you're looking at the clock and thinking, oh my goodness, how have we already done half an hour? But yeah, please do, before we wrap up the show. Yeah, please do. Share. Yeah.
So I've worked for a couple of years with a business called CampLight, and what CampLight do, I said I was going to talk about festivals. What CampLight do is rescue tents that have been left behind at festivals, clean them up, repair them, and then re-rent them back to festival goers. So it's a very simple model.
Amazing.
Yeah, and the use intensity, obviously. So we it's very labour intensive, but the use intensity is obviously driven because we're picking up tents that have already been used at least once. So we've started on that journey already. But CampLight worked at like 13 festivals this year, and we calculated the use intensity for all of those festivals, and we made a carbon efficiency saving of about 85 tons of carbon.
Wow.
Which is, to put that into context, that is about 213 return flights to Madrid.
Oh my goodness.
And that has incredible. It is incredible, but that has all come from people taking tents. So we're all tent mechanics, we're all trained to do this. We clean them, we're on our hands and knees cleaning them, we're on our hands and knees in all weathers, mending them, repairing them.
Must be a grubby job.
pitching them for festival. So when a festival attendee arrives, and this is the thing, right? This is another example of where people are misunderstanding where their joy lies. We rent these out, so they're pre-pitched. You arrive, they're pre-pitched, and they have a sleeping bag and a roll mat and a chair. And that costs per person about £45 for the whole festival weekend, right? So it's affordable. But what we have a lot of times is people saying, why would I spend £45 on a tent when I can buy one for 30 quid and keep it? Well, A, if you buy a 30 quid tent, that's not going to keep you dry. It's a single skin. We don't rent those. We don't rescue those tents. We won't touch those tents because they're absolutely useless. They're not fit for purpose, and they shouldn't be manufactured. But B, what you're forgetting is that you don't have to carry all your stuff. If you rent a tent with CampLight, you're not carrying all your stuff. You arrive and someone friendly is there to greet you. Your tent has been pitched for you.
Yeah.
Plus, you're getting a roll mat and a sleeping bag if the package includes it, and at the end of the festival you walk away. And someone else puts it down and takes it away.
That sounds like a good service to me.
But people are like, why would I do that? Spend 45 quid? Because people are like, well, of course the first thing I'm going to do if I need something or I want something, I'm just going to buy it.
Our brains have been trained on that over years and years and years.
The marketing budget on getting people to do that has been astronomical.
Yeah. And also, I would just say haters are going to hate, aren't they?
You're always going to get them.
You can't please everyone.
No, you can't.
on on that note, Rebecca, I feel like we could easily fill another hour talking about this. It's absolutely been an honor, a pleasure speaking with you today. I want to make sure. Well, there's a couple of things. I know you've kind of already given us so much advice, but I know you wanted to specifically call out about spending time in nature, right? Yeah.
Get out into nature. It will boost your mood. It will boost your physical well-being. It will just boost everything. Also, if you take one action, just use what you already have. Play the game. I play this game, and don't get me wrong. I am by no means perfect. We have been so brainwashed into buying new. Occasionally, I find myself doing it, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't even believe I did that. What have I done? So, and I've been training myself for years to stop doing that. So it's hard, we know it's hard. But the game that I play is, can I use, I'm not going to buy anything new. Don't buy anything new game. Plus, nothing goes to landfill game. Keep it all out of landfill, buy nothing new. Once you start doing that, we're starting to be looking at a more regenerative. We need to move beyond sustainability. Sustainability is about balancing. Regenerative is about giving back to the planet.
And I am hearing that phrase regenerative more and more and more. The number of times it comes up these days, it's daily now. It's
a hard one. And the other thing is, please, if you want to support Tentshare, please do list your tent onto the Tentshare platform. I want to see tents across the nation for everybody to use and borrow and enjoy camping if you want. I know not everyone likes camping, but
I might have to go on there and see if I can find one. So thank you so much. Thank you, Rebecca, and we'll link to as many of the things you mentioned as possible in the show notes, but we'll make sure, especially your website tentshare.co.uk is going to be linked, and and you can find Rebecca and Tentshare on all the usual channels, and we'll link all of those in the show notes. So thank you, Rebecca. It's been an absolute joy to speak to you today. I look forward to speaking to you again soon, and thank you everybody for listening, and hopefully you've enjoyed the show.
Thanks, James.
Cheers.